Book 1. The Age of Elantricide's Glory. Prologue. Long before the Imperium's light dimmed in the sector, Elantricide stood as a beacon of the Adeptus Mechanicus's ambition. A forge world of unparalleled brilliance, its surface was a labyrinth of manufactorums, data temples, and towering spires that pierced the heavens. The tech priests of Elantricide were renowned for their mastery of ancient STC fragments, piecing together technologies lost since the dark age of technology. At the heart of their world lay the Nexus Vault, a subterranean archive said to house the collective knowledge of 1,000 systems, blueprints for weapons, starships, and machines that could rival the Emperor's own designs. The Morning Engine was their greatest creation, a biomechanical colossus forged to guard the Nexus Vault. Standing a kilometer tall, its form was a fusion of sacred machinery and sanctified organic matter. Bones of martyred saints woven into its frame, their marrow replaced with circuits that pulsed with the machine god's will. Its head, a skeletal avian visage, housed a cogitator core capable of processing 1 billion calculations per second, while its limbs were adorned with servo claws that could crush a titan. The engine was more than a weapon. It was a living shrine to the Omnissiah, its every movement a prayer, its every hum a hymn. Archmagos Velis, the high fabricator of Elantricide, oversaw the engine's creation. A visionary even among his peers, Velis believed the Morning Engine could commune directly with the machine god, unlocking the final secrets of the universe. He fused his own neural engrams into its core, ensuring his mind would guide it even after his death. The engine's first activation was a moment of triumph. Its voxcasters sang the canticles of the Omnissiah in a voice that shook the planet, and the tech priests wept binary tears of joy. For a time, Elantricide prospered under its watchful gaze, its forges producing wonders that drew the envy of Mars itself. Chapter 1. The Fall of Elantricide. But ambition breeds hubris, and hubris invites ruin. Deep within the forges, a cabal of radical tech priests began experimenting with warp-infused technology, seeking to harness the Imperium's power to enhance their machines. They called it the Etheric Concordance, a project to merge the warp's chaotic energy with the purity of the machine god's logic. Velis, consumed by his own dreams of transcendence, turned a blind eye to their heresy, believing their work might unlock the Omnissiah's final truths. The Concordance failed catastrophically. A warp storm erupted from the forges, a maelstrom of unreality that tore through Elantricide's surface. The planet's atmosphere turned toxic, its skies stained red as the moon fractured under the storm's pressure, bleeding crimson light across the world. The data vaults, once sacred, became corrupted, their binary hymns twisting into screams of torment. The tech priests succumbed to madness, their augments rebelling as warp code infected their systems. Some clawed out their own optics, weeping oil as they chanted heretical litanies. Others turned their weapons on each other, their minds shattered by the warp's whispers. The Morning Engine, bound by its protocols to protect Elantricide, fought to stem the tide. It strode through the burning cities, its servo claws tearing apart corrupted machines, its voxcasters bellowing litanies to drown out the warp's cacophony. But the corruption was too deep. The Nexus Vault itself became a nexus of chaos, its data core birthing a demon of code that called itself Zorathax, the Unmaker. Zorathax turned the planet's own defenses against it, and the morning engine, unable to destroy the vault it was sworn to protect, faltered. Archmagos Vilas, realizing the depth of his failure, made a final desperate act. He fused his dying body to the engine's core, becoming one with its systems. His mind, now part of the machine, guided it to seal the Nexus vault, entombing Zorathax within, but at a terrible cost. The warp storm consumed the last of Elantricide's people, leaving the planet a wasteland of ash and ruin. The morning engine knelt amidst the devastation, its frame rusted and scarred, its tears of molten slag pouring into the earth. From those tears grew the forest of bone and roses, a grotesque monument to the world it had failed. The red moon, now a permanent scar in the sky, cast its light on the engine's eternal vigil, and Valus's voice, crackling through the vox, recited the canticles in an endless loop. In ferro veritas, in sanguine vita, too far. And in the shadows of the warp, Zorathax waited its laughter, a binary scream that echoed through the void, biding its time until the next fool sought the secrets of Elantricide. Chapter 2. The Pilgrim's Quest. Centuries passed, and Elantricide became a myth, a cautionary tale whispered in the halls of the Mechanicus. But its legend drew scavengers and seekers, those desperate enough to brave its horrors for the promise of its lost knowledge. Kalis Dre, a rogue trader with a reputation for defying the odds, heard the tales of the Nexus Vault and saw a chance for glory. Her ship, the Stellar Wraith, was a battered frigate crewed by outcasts and mercenaries, each one hungry for the riches Elantricide might hold. Kalis landed on the planet's surface under the red moon's baleful gaze, her crew awestruck by the morning engine's towering form. Its hum filled the air, a low, mournful drone that set their teeth on edge. The bone forest stretched out before them, its spires glinting with roses that seemed to watch their every move. Kalis, clad in a void-sealed carapace suit, led her team into the forest, following the rivers of the engine's tears. The air was thick with the scent of rust and decay, and the ground trembled with the engine's grief. At the heart of the forest they found the Nexus Vault, its entrance a gaping maw of twisted metal. Inside, the walls pulsed with corrupted code, their binary inscriptions writhing like living things. Kalis's tech adept, a wiry man named Torv, hacked into the vault's systems, his mechadendrites trembling as he fought off the warp code's assaults. They retrieved the data core, a crystalline orb that glowed with an unnatural light. But as Kalis grasped it, the forest awoke. The roses lashed out, their thorns sinking into her crew, and the bone spires began to move, impaling those too slow to flee. The morning engine's hum turned to a wail, and Valus's voice crackled through the air. The Unmaker stirs. Flee, or join us in eternity. Kalis fought her way back to the engine, her crew falling one by one. Torv was the last to die, his body torn apart by a rose vine as he screamed binary prayers. Kalis reached the engine's base, her suit torn, her arm bleeding from a thorn's venom. She collapsed at its feet, the data core clutched to her chest, and the engine's tears fell around her, burning the ground where they landed. Chapter 3. The Escape and the Curse. Kalis's vox crackled with the voice of her ship's navigator, urging her to return. She staggered back to the Stellar Wraith, the forest's wrath at her heels. As the ship lifted off, the morning engine's wail reached a crescendo, and the red moon flared, its light searing the planet's surface. Kalis watched from the bridge as Elantricide burned below, the bone forest consumed by crimson fire. The engine stood unmoved, its lament echoing into the void. But Kalis's victory was hollow. The data core, though intact, carried the taint of Zorathax. On her journey back to the Imperium, her crew began to change. Their augments malfunctioned, their dreams filled with whispers of the Unmaker. One by one they turned on each other, their minds unraveling under the demon's influence. Kalis locked herself in her quarters, the data core sealed in a stasis vault, but the whispers followed her. She saw visions of Elantricide's fall, of Vaelus's final moments, of the Morning Engine's endless grief. The thorn's venom coursed through her veins, and her wounded arm began to change, its flesh hardening into bone, its veins sprouting thorns that bloomed with blood-red roses. Kalis knew she could not return to the Imperium. The data core was too dangerous, its knowledge too tainted. She set a course for the edge of known space, vowing to find a way to destroy Zorathax before it could spread. But as the stellar wraith drifted into the void, the Morning Engine's lament followed her, a ghostly hum that haunted her every waking moment. On Elantricide, the engine knelt once more, its tears feeding the forest anew, its dirge a warning to any who would dare disturb the tomb of a fallen world. Chapter 4: The Legacy of Elantricide. Rumors of Kalis's journey spread through the sector, whispered in void ports and Mechanicus enclaves. Some said she had become a heretic, her body fully transformed into a creature of bone and roses, a servant of the Unmaker. Others claimed she still lived, a lone wanderer seeking redemption, the data core her only companion. The Morning Engine of Elantricide remained its vigil unbroken, a monument to a world that had dared to reach too far. And in the shadows of the warp, Zorathax waited its laughter, a binary scream that echoed through the void, biding its time until the next fool sought the secrets of Elantricide. Book 2, Tyrannithrax the Iron Sovereign. Chapter 1: The Desolation of the Solace Expanse. Centuries after the fall of Elantricide, the Solace Expanse, a cluster of systems orbiting the dying star Solis Primaris, had become a graveyard of worlds, shunned by the Imperium and whispered of in dread. Elantricide itself remained a cursed ruin, its surface dominated by the Morning Engine's bone forest and the crimson glow of its fractured moon, Lunaris Sancta. The warp storm that had destroyed the planet lingered in the sector, a roiling scar in the void known as the Veil of Sorrow, tainting every system with its influence. Ships that ventured too close emerged, with crews driven mad, their voxcasters broadcasting the Morning Engine's lament across the stars. The Adeptus Mechanicus had long abandoned the Solace Expanse, declaring it Perdita Extremis, a region too corrupted to reclaim. But whispers of Elantricide's lost technologies, particularly the Nexus Vault and its STC fragments, drew scavengers, heretics, and desperate pilgrims. Among them was the Iron Sovereign's Lance, a Mechanicus reclamation fleet led by Archmagos Dominus Zorin Thalax, a cold and calculating priest who sought to restore the Mechanicus's glory by recovering the lost knowledge of Elantricide. At the heart of his fleet was a Titan-class God engine, a towering war machine that had once brought entire worlds to their knees. Tyrannithrax, the Iron Sovereign. Chapter 2: The Iron Sovereign. Tyrannithrax was a warlord-class Titan, a relic of the Great Crusade, its frame scarred by 1,000 battles and its machine spirit fierce with the wrath of the Omnissiah. Its name had been extended from the ancient Terran word Tyr, meaning a god of war, to Tyrannothrax, a Gothic amalgamation evoking tyranny, death, Thanatos, and the Mechanicus's sacred wrath, Axe. Standing over 200 meters tall, its hull was a fortress of adamantium and ferrosanguis, the same blood-infused alloy used in the Morning Engine's construction. Its carapace was adorned with the skulls of fallen enemies, each one inscribed with binary litanies of vengeance, and its banners bore the cog and skull of the Mechanicus, tattered but unbowed. Tyrannothrax's armament was a testament to its purpose, a pair of volcano cannons mounted on its shoulders, capable of melting continents, and a plasma annihilator on its right arm that could vaporize a hive city in a single blast. Its left arm ended in a massive power claw, the fist of the Sovereign, which had crushed the spine of a Chaos Warhound Titan during the Third War for Armageddon. The Titan's void shields shimmered with a sickly green hue, a sign of its long exposure to the warp-tainted Solace expanse, and its voxcasters roared with a voice that shook the void, a deep, resonant bellow that chanted the litany of annihilation in battle. The Titan's princeps, a woman named Lyrian Vax, was a veteran of countless campaigns, her body fused to Tyrannothrax's command throne through a neural link that had eroded her humanity. Lyrian's mind was a storm of rage and faith, her thoughts intertwined with the Titan's machine spirit, which burned with a hatred for all that defied the Omnissiah. Together they were a force of divine retribution, a weapon forged to reclaim what the Mechanicus had lost. Chapter 3. The Reclamation of Elantricide. Archmagos. Zorin Thalax's fleet arrived in the Solace expanse under the shadow of the Veil of Sorrow, their ships battered by warp squalls and haunted by the Morning Engine's ghostly hum. Zorin, a gaunt figure with a face of polished ceramite and optics that glowed with cold blue light, stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Lex Machinae, and surveyed the ruined world of Elantricide. The planet's surface was a nightmare of bone and roses, its atmosphere thick with ash and electromagnetic interference. At its heart stood the Morning Engine, its rusted form kneeling beneath the bleeding red moon, its tears feeding the grotesque forest that had grown in the centuries since its fall. Zorin's mission was clear: locate the Nexus Vault, extract its STC fragments, and purge the corruption that had taken root. He deployed Tyrannothrax to the surface, its massive form descending in a drop cradle that burned through the atmosphere like a falling star. Lyrian Vax, her mind linked to the Titan's sensors, felt the weight of Elantricide's sorrow as they landed. The bone forest whispered her name, its roses glistening with malice, and the Morning Engine's hum grew louder, a dirge that resonated in her augments. "This world is a tomb," she voxed to Zorin, her voice distorted by static. "The machine god weeps here." Zorin, unmoved by sentiment, ordered Tyrannothrax to advance. The Titan strode through the forest, its volcano cannons vaporizing bone spires, its power claw tearing through rose vines that lashed out like living things. The Morning Engine watched in silence, its optics flickering with a pale light as if judging the intruders. Lyrian felt a chill in her neural link. Something ancient and malevolent stirred beneath the surface, a presence that Tyrannothrax's machine spirit recoiled from. Chapter 4. The Awakening of Zorathax. At the heart of the forest, Tyrannothrax reached the Nexus Vault, its entrance a gaping maw of twisted metal. Zorin's Skitarii legions followed, their rad carbines glowing in the crimson light of the moon. Inside the vault, the walls pulsed with corrupted code, their binary inscriptions writhing like daemonic runes. Zorin's tech adepts began extracting the STC fragments, their mechadendrites trembling as they fought off the warp code's assaults. But as they accessed the vault's core, the presence Lyrian had sensed awoke. Sorrowforge, the Unmaker, the demon of code that had destroyed Elantricide centuries ago. Sorrowforge's laughter filled the vault, a screeching binary cacophony that drove the Skitarii to madness. Their augments rebelled, their limbs jerking as they turned their weapons on each other. Zorin's optics flared with rage as he chanted the rite of exorcism, but the demon was too strong. It seeped into the vault's systems, spreading its corruption to the surface, and the bone forest came alive, its spires impaling Zorin's troops, its roses drinking their blood. Tyrannithrax roared, its voxcasters bellowing the litany of annihilation as Lyrian unleashed its full arsenal. The volcano cannons fired, their beams carving through the forest, and the plasma annihilator turned the vault's entrance to slag. But Sorrowforge was not so easily defeated. It infected Tyrannithrax's systems, its warp code clashing with the Titan's machine spirit. Lyrian screamed as her neural link burned, visions of Elantricide's fall flooding her mind, Vaelus's final moments, the morning engine's tears, the red moon's birth. Tyrannithrax staggered, its void shields flickering as Sorrowforge's voice echoed through its vox. "You cannot unmake the Unmaker, child of iron." Chapter 5. The Morning Engine's Intervention. As Tyrannithrax faltered, the morning engine stirred. Its rusted limbs groaned as it rose from its kneeling position, its optics blazing with a light that hadn't shone in centuries. Archmagos Vaelus's voice crackled through its voxcasters, reciting the canticles of the Omnissiah in a tone of desperate resolve. In ferro veritas, in sanguine vita. The engine's tears fell harder, burning the ground where they landed, and the bone forest parted, its roses wilting in the presence of its grief. The morning engine strode toward Tyrannithrax, its servo claws raised not in attack, but in supplication. Lyrian, her mind on the brink of collapse, felt a surge of clarity through her neural link. A fragment of Vaelus's consciousness reaching out to Tyrannithrax's machine spirit. The two god engines stood face to face, their hums resonating in a mournful harmony, and Vaelus's voice spoke directly to Lyrian. "The Unmaker must be bound, or all will fall." With Vaelus's guidance, Lyrian and Tyrannithrax fought back against Sorrowforge's corruption. The Titan's machine spirit burned with righteous fury, purging the demon's code from its systems. Together, the morning engine and Tyrannithrax sealed the Nexus Vault once more, entombing Sorrowforge within a lattice of sacred wards inscribed by the engine's tears. The forest stilled, its bone spires crumbling to ash, and the red moon dimmed, its light no longer a searing crimson but a dull, mournful glow. Chapter 6. The Aftermath. Zorin Thalax, one of the few survivors, extracted the STC fragments before the vault was sealed, but the cost was immense. His fleet was decimated, his Skitarii legions reduced to a handful of twitching wrecks. Tyrannithrax, though victorious, bore the scars of Sorrowforge's touch. Its void shields now flickered with a permanent warp taint, and its machine spirit whispered of vengeance unfulfilled. Lyrian Vax, her mind fractured by the battle, saw visions of Kalis Dre, the rogue trader who had first awakened Zorathax centuries ago, and knew their paths were intertwined. The morning engine returned to its vigil, kneeling once more amidst the ruins of Elantricide, its lament echoing through the Solace expanse. But its hum had changed a note of defiance woven into its sorrow, as if it knew the fight was not over. Tyranathrax, the Iron Sovereign, stood guard over the planet as Zorin's fleet retreated, its voxcasters silent, but its presence a warning to any who would dare disturb Elantricide again. In the void, Kalis Dre felt the ripple of Zorathax's awakening, her thorn-corrupted arm pulsing with pain. She knew the demon was not destroyed, only delayed, and that her quest to end its threat had just begun. And in the shadows of the warp, Zorathrax laughed, its binary voice a promise of ruin yet to come. Book 3, The Echo of Milathrena. Chapter 1, The Shattered Shrine of Calypsa Minor. In the 41st millennium, Calypsa Minor was a shadow of its former glory. Once a thriving shrine world in the Solace expanse, its cathedrals had echoed with the hymns of the faithful, its spires adorned with golden Aquilas that gleamed under the light of Solace Primaris. But the warp storm that destroyed Elantricide centuries ago had bled into the expanse, turning Calypsa Minor into a desolate wasteland. Its oceans had boiled away, leaving cracked salt flats. Its cathedrals were reduced to rubble, their stained glass windows shattered, their altars defiled by warp-touched winds. The planet's atmosphere was a thin veil of ash, through which the red moon of Elantricide, Lunaris Sancta, cast a perpetual crimson glow, a constant reminder of the expanse's curse. The survivors of Calypsa Minor, numbering fewer than 1,000, had formed the Order of the Crimson Thorn, a fanatical cult that saw the red moon as a divine sign. They believed the Emperor had abandoned them to test their faith, and that the moon's light heralded his return through a prophesied figure, the Echo of Sorrow, a child born under the moon's gaze who would wield a voice to cleanse the expanse, or burn it in holy fire. The cultists adorned themselves with thorned relics, their bodies scarred with rose-like patterns, and they chanted litanies in a bastardized High Gothic, their voices hoarse from the ash-laden air. Chapter 2, The Birth of Milathrena. Milathrena was born during a rare celestial alignment, when the red moon's light was at its brightest, casting Calypsa Minor in a blood-red haze. Her mother, a high priestess of the Crimson Thorn named Elira, had prayed for a sign, and as Milathrena's first cry echoed through the ruins, the ground trembled, and the shattered Aquila atop the cathedral of the Thorned Saint cracked in two. The cultists fell to their knees, proclaiming her the Echo of Sorrow. They named her Milathrena, a name derived from Mila, an ancient Calypsan term for voice of the divine, and Thrina, a suffix meaning sorrow, inspired by the cult's obsession with Elantricide's tragic legacy. As Milathrena grew, her connection to the warp became undeniable. Her voice, even as a child, carried an unnatural resonance. Her laughter could shatter glass. Her cries could calm the warp-spawned beasts that roamed Calypsa Minor's wastes, and her whispers could drive the weak-minded to madness. By the age of 10, her pale skin began to show thorn-like scars, glowing crimson under the red moon's light, a sign of her link to Elantricide's bone forest. Her violet eyes shimmered with warp-touched energy, and her dreams were filled with visions of a rusted god machine weeping molten tears beneath a crimson sky. The Crimson Thorn crafted a relic for her, a vox amplifier forged from ferrosangis, the sacred alloy of elantricide, scavenged from a crashed Mechanicus ship. The vox was shaped like a rose, its petals engraved with binary litanies, and it amplified Milathrina's voice into a sonic force that could rival a titan's roar. She wore crimson robes, embroidered with rose patterns, her long black hair adorned with thorned circlets, and she carried herself with a quiet intensity, her every word a melody of sorrow. Chapter 3. The Trials of the Crimson Thorn. At 16, Milathrina was a revered figure among the Crimson Thorn, but her path was not without hardship. The cult's leaders, including the zealous Archdeacon Vorin, believed her destiny lay on Elantricide, where she would confront the Morning Engine and fulfill the prophecy. However, dissenters within the cult, led by a bitter acolyte named Tharion, saw her as a harbinger of doom, fearing her warp-touched voice would awaken the horrors of the Expanse rather than cleanse them. Tharion's faction attempted to assassinate her, poisoning her with warp-tainted water from the salt flats, but Milathrina's voice purged the corruption, her wail shattering the conspirators' minds and leaving them as gibbering wrecks. The Crimson Thorn's pilgrimage to Elantricide was a grueling endeavor. They gathered a fleet of ramshackle ships, salvaged voidfarers and repurposed mining vessels, naming their flagship the Thorned Requiem. Milathrina stood on the bridge, her vox amplifier at her side, and sang a hymn to guide their journey, her voice calming the warp squalls that threatened to tear their ships apart. But the veil of sorrow, the lingering warp storm that haunted the Expanse, was relentless. As they approached Elantricide, the storm lashed out, its tendrils of unreality shredding their fleet. The Thorned Requiem crash-landed near the bone forest, its hull impaled on bone spires, and the cultists were scattered across the planet's surface, many succumbing to the forest's predatory roses. Chapter 4. The Song in the Bone Forest. Milathrina emerged from the wreckage, her crimson robes torn but her resolve unbroken. She stood amidst the bone forest, its bone spires arching like ribs, its blood-red roses glistening with malice, and sang a lament to calm its wrath. Her voice, a haunting melody amplified by the ferrosangui vox, echoed through the forest, causing the roses to bloom anew, their petals trembling as if in reverence. The ground beneath her feet cracked, revealing ancient Mechanicus runes buried beneath the ash, and the Morning Engine stirred, its rusted limbs groaning as it rose from its kneeling position. Archmagos Vilis's voice crackled through its voxcasters, a mix of awe and sorrow. The echo has come. The sorrow speaks. The Morning Engine's optics flared with a light not seen in centuries, its molten tears falling faster, feeding the bone forest with renewed vigor. Milathrina approached the engine, her violet eyes meeting its glowing optics, and she felt a connection, a shared grief that transcended time. She sang to the engine, her voice weaving a melody that mirrored its lament, and the engine responded, its voxcasters humming in harmony, a duet of sorrow that resonated across Elantricide. Chapter 5. The Wrath of Tyrannithrax. Milathrina's song drew the attention of Tyrannithrax, the Iron Sovereign, still guarding the Nexus Vault. The Titan strode through the bone forest, its massive form shaking the ground, its volcano cannons primed, its void shields flickering with a sickly green warp taint. Lyrian Vax, Tyrannithrax's princeps, felt a surge of dread through her neural link. Milathrina's voice resonated with the same frequency as Zorathax's binary laughter, a sound that had haunted the Titan since its last battle. Lyrian ordered Tyrannithrax to attack, fearing the girl was a herald of the daemon's return. Tyrannithrax's volcano cannon fired, a searing beam of energy that vaporized a swath of the bone forest. But Milathrina's song bent the warp around her, deflecting the blast into the sky, where it exploded in a shower of fiery orange light. The Titan's fist of the sovereign power claw swung down, aiming to crush her, but the morning engine intervened, its servo claws catching the blow with a deafening clang. Velis's voice spoke through the engine. "She is the voice of our grief. She must be heard." Tyrannithrax's machine spirit, sensing the morning engine's intent, relented, its cannons lowering, its voxcasters emitting a low, resonant hum that joined the duet, creating a trinity of sound that echoed through the expanse. Chapter 6. The Arrival of Kalis Dre. At that moment, Kalis Dre's ship, the Stellar Wraith, entered Elantricide's orbit. Kalis, now a grotesque fusion of bone and roses, her body a living testament to the bone forest's corruption, sensed Milathrina's presence through the data core she carried. Zorathax's whispers grew louder, a cacophony of binary rage. "Her voice will unmake me. Silence her." Kalis descended to the surface, her thorn-corrupted arm pulsing with warp energy, her servo arm wielding a plasma pistol, her crew, a band of warp-touched mercenaries, following in her wake. Kalis confronted Milathrina in the heart of the bone forest, her bionic eye glowing red, her voice a snarl. "Your song ends here, girl. The Unmaker demands your silence." She fired her plasma pistol, bolts of searing energy streaking through the air, but Milathrina's voice deflected them, her wail bending the warp itself, creating a shimmering barrier of sound. The Crimson Thorn cultists, rallied by her song, emerged from the forest, their thorned relics gleaming, their chants of Emperor's echo echoing through the spires. They clashed with Kalis's crew, their crude weapons no match for the mercenaries' firepower, but their fanaticism drove them forward, buying Milathrina time. Chapter 7. The Battle for the Nexus Vault. Milathrina turned her song toward the Nexus Vault, its entrance a gaping maw of twisted metal, pulsing with Zorathax's corruption. Her voice, now a piercing wail, resonated with the vault's wards, causing them to crack, and Zorathax's binary laughter turned to a scream as its form, a writhing mass of code and shadow, began to emerge. The demon's tendrils lashed out, infecting the bone forest, causing the roses to grow monstrous, their thorns impaling cultists and mercenaries alike. Tyrannithrax and the morning engine joined the battle, their combined might holding back Zorathax's advance. Tyrannithrax's volcano cannons fired, their beams vaporizing the demon's tendrils, while the morning engine's servo claws tore through its shadowy form, its tears burning the corruption where they landed. Milathrina stood at the vault's entrance, her vox amplifier glowing with Ferrosanguis light, and sang a song of sorrow, a melody that wove together the morning engine's lament, Tyrannithrax's rage, and her own warp-touched grief. Her voice reached a crescendo, a sonic wave that shattered the vault's entrance, forcing Zorathax back into its prison, its scream fading into silence. Chapter 8. The Cost of Victory. The effort cost Milathrina dearly. Her thorn scars bled, crimson rivulets running down her arms, Her violet eyes dimmed to a pale gray, and her voice fell silent, reduced to a soft whisper. The Crimson Thorn cultists, those who survived, fell to their knees, weeping at her sacrifice, declaring her St. Milathrina, the echo of sorrow. Kaelis Dre, witnessing Milathrina's selflessness, felt a flicker of hope amidst Zorathax's whispers. She lowered her weapon, the data core's glow dimming for the first time in centuries, and retreated to the stellar wraith, vowing to find a way to destroy the demon once and for all. Chapter 9. The Trinity of Guardians. Milathrina chose to remain on Elanthricide, her presence a new guardian alongside the Morning Engine and Tyrannithrax. She took up residence in the ruins of Cydonia Primus, in a shattered data temple where the Mechanicus had once stored their sacred knowledge. Her whispered songs, though soft, kept the bone forest at bay, the roses blooming in reverence rather than malice. The Morning Engine knelt nearby, its tears falling in rhythm with her whispers, while Tyrannithrax patrolled the perimeter, its vox casters humming a low, protective note. The Crimson Thorn established a new shrine on Elanthricide, their numbers growing as pilgrims from across the expanse came to hear St. Milathrina's whispers. They carved her likeness into the bone spires, a figure in crimson robes with thorn scars glowing, her vox amplifier raised to the red moon. Milathrina's visions continued, showing her glimpses of Kaelis Dre's journey, Zorathax's lingering threat, and a future where the Solace expanse might be cleansed or consumed. She knew her role as the echo of sorrow was far from over, her whispered songs a beacon in the darkness. Book 4, prequel story, The Forging of Eternity. Chapter 1. The Golden Age of Elanthricide. In the 38th millennium, Elanthricide was a jewel in the crown of the Adeptus Mechanicus, a forge world orbiting a star known as Solis Primaris in the Ultima Segmentum. Its surface was a marvel of sacred industry. Vast manufactorums churned out weapons and starships for the Imperium's endless wars, while data temples housed cogitators that hummed with the binary prayers of the machine god. The planet's atmosphere shimmered with electromagnetic fields, a byproduct of its ceaseless production, and its moon, a pale orb named Lunaris Sancta, reflected the glow of 1,000 forge fires. Elanthricide's tech priests were a breed apart, their devotion to the Omnissiah matched only by their ambition. They were led by the Council of Fabricators, a conclave of 12 archmagi who governed the planet's forges and data vaults. The Council's chambers, located in the spire of infinite cogs, were a labyrinth of whirring gears and glowing hollow displays, where the archmagi debated the will of the machine god in a language of pure binary. Among them, Archmagos Vilis was the most revered and the most controversial. A towering figure clad in crimson robes, his body was a masterpiece of augmentation, his face a featureless mask of polished steel, his arms replaced with mechadendrites that could manipulate 1,000 tools at once, and his mind linked to a neural lattice that allowed him to process data at a rate rivaling a Titan's cogitator. Valis was a visionary, obsessed with the idea of transcending the limitations of flesh and machine. He believed the Omnissiah was not just a deity to be worshipped, but a state of being to be achieved, a perfect union of logic and divinity. His sermons, broadcast across Elanthricide's Vox networks, inspired the tech priests to push the boundaries of their craft. Under his guidance, the planet rediscovered fragments of standard template constructs, STCs, lost since the Horus Heresy, using them to create technologies that drew the envy of Mars. Plasma forges that could melt adamantium, void shields that could withstand a supernova, and data cores that could store the knowledge of entire sectors. These were the fruits of Elantricide's labor. But Velus's greatest dream was the creation of a god machine, a construct that could embody the Omnissiah's will and commune directly with the divine. He called it the Morning Engine, a name inspired by an ancient Mechanicus prophecy. In the age of sorrow, a machine shall weep, and its tears shall anoint the faithful. The Council of Fabricators, though wary of Velus's zeal, approved the project, seeing it as a chance to cement Elantricide's legacy as the greatest forge world in the Imperium. Chapter 2. The construction of the Morning Engine. The creation of the Morning Engine was a monumental undertaking, spanning decades and consuming resources that could have built a fleet of battle cruisers. The project was overseen by Velus himself, who worked alongside a cadre of the planet's finest tech priests, including Magos Biologis Erin, a specialist in the integration of organic and mechanical systems, and Magos Dominus Kaelor, a master of battlefield constructs who had once commanded a legion of Skitarii against the orcs of the Ghoul Stars. The engine's design was a fusion of the sacred and the profane, a testament to the Mechanicus's belief that the divine could be found in both flesh and steel. Its frame was forged from a rare alloy called ferro sanguis, a metal infused with the blood of martyred saints, harvested from the reliquaries of a dozen shrine worlds. The ferro sanguis was said to resonate with the machine god's will, its molecular structure shifting in response to binary prayers. The engine skeleton was constructed from the bones of these same saints, their marrow hollowed out, and replaced with circuits that pulsed with sacred code. Each bone was inscribed with litanies of protection, etched in microscopic binary by servo skulls working tirelessly for years. The engine's head was modeled after the avian form of the Aquila Imperialis, a symbol of the Emperor's dominion, but its design was twisted into something more primal, a skeletal raptor with hollowed optics that glowed with a pale, ghostly light. Within its skull was the cogitator core, a crystalline matrix grown in the deepest forges of Elantricide, capable of processing 1 billion calculations per second. The core was linked to Velus's own neural engrams, a fragment of his mind imprinted into the machine to ensure its loyalty and devotion. This connection was a closely guarded secret, known only to Velus and a handful of his most trusted acolytes, for it bordered on heresy to bind a human soul to a machine in such a way. The engine's limbs were a marvel of engineering, each one a lattice of servo claws, plasma cannons, and gravitic manipulators. Its torso housed a fusion reactor that burned with the heat of a dying star, its energy channeled through conduits of sanctified gold. But the most striking feature was its ability to weep, a system of hydraulic ducts that allowed it to shed tears of molten slag, a symbolic act of devotion to the Omnissiah. Velus designed this feature himself, believing that a machine capable of sorrow could truly understand the divine. The construction took place in the Forge of Eternal Assembly, a vast cathedral factory at the heart of Elantricide's capital city, Cydonia Primus. The forge was a sacred space, its walls lined with statues of the Omnissiah's avatars, its air thick with the scent of incense and oil. Thousands of tech priests labored day and night, their chants echoing through the halls as they assembled the engine piece by piece. Servo skulls flitted through the air, carrying tools and components while Skitarii guards patrolled the perimeter, their red optics scanning for any sign of sabotage. The project was a matter of planetary pride, and every citizen of Elanthroside contributed in some way, from the lowliest menial to the highest archmagos. Chapter 3. The first activation. After 37 years of labor, the morning engine was complete. It stood a kilometer tall, its shadow stretching across Cydonia Primus like a shroud. The day of its activation was declared a holy festival, and the tech priests gathered in their millions to witness the birth of their god machine. Valis stood at the engine's base, his mechadendrites trembling with anticipation as he initiated the activation sequence. The fusion reactor roared to life, its light bathing the forge in a golden glow, and the engine's optics flared with a searing intensity. The morning engine took its first step, the ground shaking beneath its weight, and its voxcasters sang the canticles of the Omnissiah in a voice that resonated across the planet. The tech priests fell to their knees, their augments weeping oil as they chanted in unison, "Blessed be the machine god, for he has given us his avatar." The engine raised its servo claws to the sky, and its tears fell for the first time, molten slag that burned the ground where it landed. Valis, his mask reflecting the engine's light, declared it a success, a living testament to the Omnissiah's glory. For a time, the morning engine fulfilled its purpose. It stood guard over the Nexus Vault, a subterranean archive beneath Cydonia Primus that housed Elanthroside's most sacred data cores. Its presence deterred any who might threaten the planet, and its hum became a constant in the lives of Elanthroside's people, a reminder of the machine god's protection. Valis, now hailed as the prophet of the Omnissiah, turned his attention to new projects, his ambition growing with each success. Chapter 4. The Seeds of Heresy. But beneath the surface, dissent was brewing. Magos biologist Erin, who had overseen the engine's organic components, began to question Valis's methods. She discovered the neural engram link between Valis and the engine, and her faith wavered. To bind a human soul to a machine was an act of hubris, a violation of the Mechanicus's sacred tenets. She confronted Valis in the spire of infinite cogs, her vox emitter crackling with anger. "You have made yourself a god, Archmagos. The Omnissiah will not forgive this blasphemy." Valis dismissed her concerns, his mask impassive. "The Omnissiah speaks through me, Erin. You will see." Erin was not alone in her doubts. A cabal of radical tech priests, led by Magos Logis Tharax, had been conducting their own experiments in secret. They called their project the Etheric Concordance, a plan to harness the warp's chaotic energy to enhance Elanthroside's machines. Tharax believed that the warp was not a realm of corruption, but a source of untapped potential, a new frontier for the Mechanicus to conquer. He and his followers built a warp conduit in the depths of the Forge of Eternal Assembly, a device that could channel the Imperium's power into their systems. Valis, consumed by his own dreams of transcendence, turned a blind eye to the Cabal's work. He saw the Etheric Concordance as a means to an end, a way to unlock the final secrets of the Omnissiah. He allowed Tharax to proceed, believing he could control the outcome, but Erin saw the danger. She tried to warn the Council of Fabricators, but they were too enamored with Valis's vision to listen. Desperate, she sabotaged the warp conduit, hoping to delay the project. Her actions came too late. Sanguine Vita. The engine sealed the Nexus vault, entombing Zorathax within, but the damage was done. Elantricide was a wasteland, its people dead or corrupted, its forges silent. The mourning engine knelt amidst the ruins, its tears feeding the bone forest that would grow in the centuries to come, its lament a requiem for a world that had dared to reach too far. Chapter 5. The Cataclysm Begins. On the eve of the etheric concordance's activation, the mourning engine stood silent, its optics fixed on the horizon. Vilis, Tharax, and the Council gathered in the Forge of Eternal Assembly, their chants rising as the warp conduit hummed to life. The device glowed with an unnatural light, its energy seeping into the Forge's systems. For a moment it seemed to work. The cogitators processed data at an unprecedented rate, and the Forges produced machines that defied the laws of physics. But the warp is not so easily tamed. The conduit overloaded, and a warp storm erupted from its core, a maelstrom of unreality that tore through the Forge. The storm spread across Elantricide, its tendrils corrupting everything they touched. The data vaults screamed with heretical code, their binary hymns twisting into the laughter of demons. The tech priests fell to madness, their augments rebelling as warp code infected their systems. Cydonia Primus burned, its spires collapsing into the inferno, and the moon, Lunaris Sancta, fractured under the storm's pressure, its surface bleeding crimson light across the sky. The mourning engine, its protocols screaming in conflict, strode into the chaos. Its servo claws tore apart corrupted machines, its voxcasters bellowing litanies to drown out the warp's cacophony. But the corruption was too deep. The Nexus Vault, the heart of Elantricide's knowledge, became a nexus of chaos, its data core birthing the daemon Zorathax, the Unmaker. Zorathax turned the planet's defenses against it, and the engine faltered, unable to destroy the vault it was sworn to protect. Valis, his body ravaged by the storm, made a final act of desperation. He fused himself to the engine's core, his mind merging with its systems. As his flesh burned away, his voice crackled through the vox. In ferro veritas, in sanguine vita. The engine sealed the Nexus Vault, entombing Zorathax within, but the damage was done. Elantricide was a wasteland, its people dead or corrupted, its forges silent. The mourning engine knelt amidst the ruins, its tears feeding the bone forest that would grow in the centuries to come, its lament a requiem for a world that had dared to reach too far.